Welcome to the online video on how to use Google Forms in the SM position. This video will familiarize you with the various documents used for data entry in the SM position, as well as going over the expectations in regards to these forms. If you have any questions after the video, please ask your security coordinator. Prior to entering data on the forms, please make sure the computer is connected to ResComp and has internet access. In the event of internet failure, please use the paper forms located in the designated binder labeled Backup Forms. Please note this in your duty log if backup forms are used. The SM program tracks the activity of the residence hall with three main forms. The visitor log tracks non-resident entry into the hall. The resident log tracks residents who do not have a CAL ID at time of entry, and the equipment log tracks rental of hall staff equipment. Many of the procedures and protocols are discussed and reviewed during SM training and can be reviewed again in the SM manual. If you have any further questions, please ask your security coordinator. Once connected to the internet, there are two locations that will give you access to the forms. The first location is on the computer desktop. There should be three desktop icons with the Google Forms symbol. They should be named with the unit number, building abbreviation code, and form names such as visitor, resident, or equipment. Either double-click or right-click and select Open to bring up the appropriate form. Conversely, you may also find the links located on the SM Resources page for each unit. If you are using the links off the SM Resources page, please make sure that you have selected the correct building. Upon clicking on the selected link, you will be directed to a Google form. The forms are slightly different, but are fairly self-explanatory. Questions regarding these forms should be directed to your security coordinator. We will now review the three forms and the information needed in them. Failure to properly format data on these forms may pose a safety or security breach and may result in disciplinary measures. Prior to data entry, remember to double-check that the correct form opened and that it is for the unit and building that you are in. The visitor form asks for the resident's name, room number, visitor name, and SM initials. As a reminder, the resident must be with the visitor at time of check-in. If a visitor is asking a resident they do not know to sign them in with the express purpose of entering the hall, please remind residents that for whoever they sign in, they are responsible for their actions per hall policy. Visitors must also present valid photo ID at time of entry, such as a state or government-issued ID, school ID, or a credit card with a photo. Other IDs may also be used if they have a photo and the name of the person. Visitors include, but are not limited to, family members, friends who do not live in the residence hall, and significant others. An exception is if the visitor is under the typical high school age, in which having a photo ID is rare. In such situations, remind the resident that the individual is their responsibility. Photo ID that is not acceptable include pictures of photo IDs or copies of photo IDs. Hall staff such as resident assistants, theme program assistants, and community coordinators are included in this policy except when performing job-related duties. Assistant residential directors, assistant directors, and faculty and residents and partners of these individuals are excluded from this procedure. For university-affiliated groups such as ResComp, maintenance, custodial staff, academic services, residential clerks, and others, should identify themselves and show their university ID for entrance, meaning that they do not need a resident to sign them in. In such instances, put the department that they are coming from, such as maintenance, ResComp, etc., in the resident name section, and the reason for entry in the room number section. For emergency services, visually identify that they are UCPD or other emergency services, and contact the RA on duty to manage the situation. They do not need to be signed in. Detailed instructions can be found in the SM manual. Exceptions and exclusions may apply, If you have any questions or concerns, verify them with your security coordinator. The resident form asks for the resident's name, room number, reason for not having their ID, if the resident has an alternate form of ID, and SM initials. Residents are expected to carry their Cal One card upon entry to the resident halls during the Security Monitor program's hours of operation. If a resident does not have their Cal ID, verify that they are a resident of the building by finding the resident in the building roster. Ask the resident to verify information, usually their student ID and their date of birth. During the beginning of the year, residents may not have memorized their student ID, so if that is the case, the date of birth should suffice. Failure to answer these questions correctly merits a heightened security response in which the RA on duty should be called to assist in the situation. Depending on if imminent danger is present, you may also contact UCPD. If both questions are answered correctly, ask the resident if they have an alternate form of photo ID, such as a driver's license, state ID, etc. If they say yes, verify that the names match up on the ID to the building roster and indicate on the form what ID was seen. Remind residents that a Cal ID is needed for entry in the future. If a resident states that they lost their ID, remind residents that they need to get it deactivated and replaced at the Cal One card office as soon as possible, as it is a security risk. If the resident does not have an alternate photo ID present and identity has been verified with the roster, tell the resident that they have 15 minutes to return with their ID, either their Cal One card or any other form of alternate ID. If they do not return in that time, contact the RA on duty to do a check-in with that resident. If a valid alternate photo ID is shown, the resident does not have to come back down to show you their ID. If this becomes a frequent habit, however, please note the resident name in your duty log. The equipment form asks for resident name, room number, equipment checked out, any specific information regarding the equipment, status of the equipment, and SM initials. For the most part, equipment is only checked out to residents of that building. Residents must present a photo ID to check out equipment. Some exceptions may apply and are detailed during SM training and in the SM manual. If the equipment is not located in the checklist, please enter it in the Other option. For general equipment categories such as cookware or board games, note the specific entities that are checked out in the free response section following the checkboxes. Upon checking out equipment, also note the general status of the equipment. In the event that broken equipment is returned, do not accept that equipment and inform the resident that the residential director will be in contact in regards to replacement, with the exception of small, easy replaceable equipment such as ping pong balls. For equipment such as carts and vacuums, if the need is high, a time limit may be imposed, such as a 20-minute time limit, so that everyone has a fair opportunity for usage. Upon checkout, also remind residents that equipment is due at the end of the late shift. For broken and unreturned equipment, please note that in your duty log with the appropriate identifying information. To edit the forms, on the desktop there will also be an icon for Google Sheets. This icon will look different than the Google form links and is titled with the unit number, building abbreviation code, followed by the word Edit in all caps. Double-clicking on this icon will take you to Google Sheets, to which all of your entries from the previous forms are combined and stored. Upon clicking on the link, the default page will be the responses to the visitor forms as seen here. The tabs on the bottom of the page will take you to the other forms, resident and equipment. For the visitor forms, columns A through E are locked, denoted by the gray stripes, meaning that you will be unable to edit them. These gray stripes will also be seen on the resident and equipment forms, meaning that those will not be able to be edited. Columns F through I are editable, and this is where you would enter time 2 or time 3 of visitor entry if you did not want to resubmit the entry. Only your security coordinator has the ability to edit columns A through E, or basically the areas of the gray stripes, so that if you do make a mistake, just resubmit another entry and notify your security coordinator in your duty log. The resident response sheet is similar to the visitor response sheet, however, with one different aspect. Columns A through G cannot be edited while columns H through I are highlighted in red. These columns stay highlighted until you edit them with the time returned and your initials. This presents an easy way for the security coordinator to check if proper sign-in procedures are followed to its entirety. Any issues of residents not returning, and thus being unable to enter the time that they return, should be appropriately noted in your duty log. Rounding out the trio of forms, the equipment sheet shares the same qualities as the resident sheet in terms of time returned and SM initials that are highlighted in red until data is entered there. If equipment is not returned by the end of the late shift, it is the late shift SM's responsibility to note it in their duty log. As a final note, failure to appropriately note when residents return with their ID or return equipment will result in disciplinary action per the disciplinary action rubric, which can be reviewed in the SM manual. Security coordinators will be periodically spot checking all of these sheets to make sure that all data is entered properly. Thank you for watching this online video on how to complete forms for the Security Monitor program. If you have any further questions, please contact your security coordinator for clarification. Thank you.